Hi, I got great news for everybody building an Android mobile application inside of Despia because we have improved the way app icons for Android work and how you can preview them. Because until now, what Android has been doing is it's taken your icon that you have uploaded and it did stretch it, which caused in a lot of cases for the core part of the icon to be cut off, which was a terrible user experience. Now, we did improve that by giving you a preview on how your icon will look on Android and giving you a separate upload for that to introduce more safe area, more safe space in that icon to give it more padding because Android icons need to have 40% up to 40% more padding compared to iOS icons. So let's take a look at that and let's set that up together. So as you can see, what did change on the editors, we now have an iOS icon and an Android icon, so you don't have that cutoff when it does do the stretching, right? So what we want to do, because even if it's a square icon, for example, with Samsung, what it does, it takes the stretched round icon and it just cuts it even more. So like with Android, a lot of cutting happens because there are no guidelines. Like with Apple, there are so many guidelines on icons and how much space they have to have. And like it's all correct. Nothing ever gets cut off because of user experience. With Android, what the devices do, they just cut the icon to their liking so it makes sense. But they don't know that they cut something off that is important. So we now made a process to make it simpler for you to manage that and to navigate that. So what I have inside of here is I have a project in Canva to kind of like illustrate you how much safe space you want to have. That is a great icon for iOS. You have, about 20% padding around it. That's a great one for Android. You see it's way, way tinier, even though it's going to be zoomed in because it does do the cutting. What's going to happen with Android is it takes about 20% space away, so about like this. So what it does about this, if we move this in the background here real quick, I will make this a little bit of gray. So this is what Android is doing. It does have about 15 to 20% that's going to be cut away from it. As you can see, this is what it will cut away. And then within this cutaway, based on the system, because every Android device kind of like, for some reason, why do I have that locked? What is going on here? But you see, I have that in here and it's going to have it cut off. But then what's going to happen, for example, you have a Samsung, page is locked. Here you go. What is going on here? Okay, I think I'm good now. So what's then going to happen is, let's make this blue so we can kind of like see the color difference. What's going to happen is if you have a Samsung with this already cut off circle, it's going to then even cut off more from your icon. So this is in the middle, and then they're going to have your fancy rounded border. So from this, how it would look on iOS, they're going to do this with Android. And then at the end of the day, you see it has the same proportions and it'll look the same. But Android kind of like needs to have a lot of safe space because some devices have squares, some devices have kind of squares, some devices are round. So with iOS, they all have the same format. There are strong guidelines. With Android, the device just cuts it how they like. So they'll never have the full thing. Some devices have, some older devices, and for them, we're just going to serve them the iOS file. But for Pixel devices, for all devices heavily built on the Android open source project with little to no customization, this is how the icon will look. That will look good. For Samsung devices, within that cut off icon, it's going to cut off even more. So then it'll look the same with like the iOS icon. But you can't just upload that because then for the round ones, it will be cut off. And even for the square ones, because it does the zooming. So that's kind of like how Android works, which is weird because it could just cut it off from here, but it does do zoom in and then cut off for some reason. But those are the official guidelines. So we're just working within those, even though they don't make sense. So I do have those two icons here. As you can see, I got one for iOS beautifully inside of here, prepared for you. And I have one Android one beautifully in here prepared for you. So inside of the new dashboard in Despia, I want to upload that iOS icon here. Let's take a look. Done. Looks beautiful. We now also have a great preview for Android. If I upload the Android icon here, you'll see a real-time preview of how this will look on an Android device. And as you can see, perfectly matches, perfectly works. So now I'm going to export that project for Android here, build Android app, package and preview. This is going to export and build that package for me. I've already done that before, a little bit prepared here because my internet is a little bit bad today, but we'll see if it works today. And then I should be able to get that package that we're then going to open in Android Studio. So let's automatically already open Android Studio. So we have that all prepared. So as you can see, it did work. My internet seems to be better today. So let's get the fresh file, right? I don't want to have it look like we're doing some tricks or something, right? So we'll just take that here. I got that Android file. What you want to do with that Android folder, you always want to rename that. So because what Android Studio is doing, it's not as smart as Xcode, I have to say. With Android Studio, if you ever uploaded a file with the same name, what it's going to do is it will think that you're trying to edit an existing project, even though you have new dependencies, and it's kind of like mixing your old stuff with your new stuff. That will most of the time cause errors. So we'll open Android Studio and we move our new app folder that is in the zip file inside of here. Now what's going to happen is it does a lot of indexing and does a lot of updates because it has to import all those new dependencies. The nice thing about Despia is we actually update the dependencies for you, so you don't need to make sure that you always have the latest Gradle inside of there. We'll do those updates for you every time you do a code export, and we will always make sure that we're using the latest versions, the latest dependencies, so nothing gets outdated. So that's something we do for you. So now when I run that build inside of here, it's going to compile that app in Android Studio. And as you can see in the simulator, we have that new icon and nothing is cut off. And it looks beautiful. There you have it. And that's how we do the app icons. We can close the app because we only care about the icon today. But as you can see, the icon is perfect. And here you go. That's how you set those things up. Works beautiful. You got the app icon inside of here and nothing is cut off, and it works beautiful and looks great on all Android devices thanks to the new preview feature. And as you can see, it's not that much off on how it actually looks in real life with our new preview feature, making sure that you never go above the boundaries. Actually, we're a little bit more conservative here in that preview where we cut off a little bit more than the device actually does, just to make sure that, you know, sometimes some devices have like 5% difference, that you're always, you know, have a great icon on all Android devices, because every Android device kind of like runs their own operating system, because Android is an open source platform, but all the manufacturers, they're kind of like jailbreaking it. They're kind of like hacking it together to be their own thing. Samsung is really good at doing that, right? Even Google for the Google Pixel, they're adding stuff that doesn't really make much sense to improve their Pixel phones, because Android is open source. Every manufacturer using Android can take Android, customize it. And what's most of the time happening with Android apps, actually your home screen in Android, the whole UI, the whole interface is an app. So your app runs in another app in Android, because your launcher in Android is an Android app. And depending on how those companies build the launcher, your icons get rendered differently and all that kind of stuff. But the cool thing is, with Despia, you could make a launcher app technically, even though that's probably not recommended. But if you build something like the Rabbit R1, that's what they did. They made a launcher app for a little hardware project running Android, and they just installed the app as the launcher. So technically, the Rabbit R1 people could use Despia to speed up their development, to make the Rabbit R2, right, faster. Technically, it would work. Because with Android, you have that capability to accessing launchers. That's why smart TVs and some cheaper watches or even some devices like refrigerators or whatever run Android actually on them with a custom launcher. And you technically could make an app for a refrigerator inside of Despia if it has the technical capability to run Android, which most of those smart devices have. Actually, that's what they run under the hood, and they just use custom launchers for those things. Or if you go to Target, right, you have those intercoms where you can search products. They're using Android with a custom launcher. So technically, Target could build a custom Android app using Despia, revamping all their, the little screens to figure out on what aisle they have the, I don't know, the packaging paper or the duct tape. They could. Technically, it's possible. So that's the beauty about app icons and Android. And I hope you got great value out of this video. Thank you so much for considering to use Despia or using Despia. I really appreciate that. And this bug or this improvement sounds better than a bug, but this improvement was brought to you thanks to a wonderful user of Despia that brought this to our attention. So if you have anything that you feel is not moving as it should be, that you want an improvement, you want a new feature, right? Make sure to tell us those things because we're actively listening. We want to make Despia better for you. And if we get your feedback, that gives us better chances at making sure that we make it better for you. For example, we had one user tell us that they want to have access to the native contacts of the device. And I thought about it, and it's a great feature. I think every app should have that. I mean, if it makes sense. Please don't get their access and send it to your database and sell their emails. That would be not allowed. But I think it's a great feature. That's something we should support. So we did add that feature now to Despia. It's still in QA, but we'll releasing that soon. Another one actually asked about widgets, and I was like, how are we supposed to do widgets? We have to do Swift. I'm not making a no-code builder for Swift, but we actually found a solution. We're just using images. We have the app generate images following Apple's Human UI guidelines using background tasks, and then we're just injecting them in the widget. That is 100% compliant with Apple's guidelines because widgets can be images, can be PNGs. That's completely fine. They don't have to be built in Swift. The frame of the widget will be a Swift UI, and then we'll just embed an image in there generated by the app in the background from the server. So that is technically possible. So please give us those ideas so we can add those things to Despia. We're also planning to add HealthKit in the future to Android and iOS so you can access their smartwatch data, their health data, all those information if you're building a fitness wellness app. So we're adding a lot of great stuff. I actually have my roadmap right here. We're also working on share into the app. We're working on restore in-app purchases. We're working on making NFC because until now we did charge $2,500 to add NFC into your Despia app. I think that is not nice for us to do, especially what has happened is if you need a custom NFC integration, it makes sense. We need to build a custom package for you. So that's why we charge $2,500. Most people though never use them. They just bought those standard NFC tags that you can get from Amazon, right? We don't need to build a custom integration from them. We can put that, in every version of Despia. So moving forward, we're not going to sell the NFC version anymore, and we'll give a refund to everybody who purchased our NFC plugin because we're going to add that for free in a later version of Despia. I don't have a timeline on that, but that's something we're going to do because it wouldn't be fair to everybody who paid for that already to then have it out there for free. So if anybody purchased that NFC plugin, we'll make sure to send them a refund the moment we have that version for free out there. So that's some of the steps that we're doing to make Despia better for you, and those things are heavily inspired by all the user feedback that we have been getting. So please make sure to send us an email at feedback@despia.com if there are any features that you want to see, that you want us to add in there, because we want to make sure that Despia is the best tool out there for you to build your mobile application. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate that, and I wish you a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.